Councillor Brousseau, Councillor Robertson, Councillor Mendocino, Councillor Main, Councillor Anthony, Councillor Tignanelli, Councillor Bain, Councillor King, Councillor Bill Vraybosch, Councillor Tanya Vraybosch, Mayor McDonald, all present.
Okay, this time declare any conflicts? Deputy Mayor Vraybosch?
Yes, I have a conflict in regards to the second recommendation, which would be report number 2019-06, as DSAB is my employer.
Okay, your conflict's been noted. Councillor Vraybosch?
Yeah, I have the same conflict because of employment for DSAB.
Okay, your conflict has been noted. Anyone else? Seeing none, we have one scheduled presenter this evening, Paul Traveras.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'll just introduce myself. Paul Tavares, in town for the past 10 days, sleeping in a tent on Main Street, downtown, from Cambridge, Ontario. And I'm going to be very brief because I know that you're probably stretching it by allowing me to speak at all. So I would ask that you just keep doing what you're doing and stay open to possibilities of partnerships with different organizations and private citizens possibly to alleviate what I would call an ever-increasing epidemic of sorts with poverty and homelessness itself. And please don't follow in the footsteps of some nearby communities that seem to be spending more money on animal shelters than on homeless shelters. Two communities in mind would be Quinte West, which granted $62,500 for an animal shelter, but only $5,000 for the Belleville shelter that's opening this May or June. North in Sudbury, there was a $1.5 million grant for another animal shelter, yet at the same time, the Salvation Army is closing their shelter due to a redirection of funding for a new shelter. CMHA is opening a new homeless shelter, so it's kind of a redirection of funding, which is causing that to close. So I would say try to consider priorities. Animals might not be a higher priority than human beings, and people that are experiencing financial difficulties are human beings first, and they're somebody's brother and sister and son and daughter and everything else. So I'll leave it at that, other than to say thank you very much. I felt very welcome here for the past 10 days, and aside from Cambridge itself, my hometown, North Bay is #1 community as far as financial contributions. So that's all I have to say.
Great, thanks very much. Mr. Tavares, we do have a number of questions. Councillor King.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Paul, for taking actually the time during the week to talk to people from DSAB with respect to what's transpiring in our communities. I think we're all well aware of what's going on, and thank you again for being here tonight. I guess one of the questions really hinges around your own personal experiences, and I think it's important for this council to hear that North Bay is a very open, obliging community, but at the same time North Bay has some very large problems with respect to homelessness. So I wonder if you could, just in the short week that you've been here, kind of explain to council where this is in our community.
Well, I've been able to wander throughout the day and throughout the night to different corners of the city, and there are several places where people can go throughout the day. You have the gathering place on Castles. You have the Community of Friends drop-in center on Main Street. There's a few churches that offer meals throughout the day and different times of the week, and sometimes there's some coordinated efforts required there to actually know where to go and It would take some time for a newcomer to be on the streets to understand where to go at what time and that kind of thing. But I think proportionately, given the size of North Bay, about 52,000, and possibly with the district of Nipissing being 80,000 or give or take, I think the numbers are probably proportionally out of whack with some other communities. I know Hamilton itself probably has twice the provincial average of homeless people on the streets in Hamilton. I'm from the region of Waterloo, and there with numbers of people waiting for affordable housing, and you spoke about housing, it's a very big part of the puzzle there, and sometimes people wait 7-8 years depending on priorities. It's like a triage situation where you go and sit in the hospital for an emergency service and you wait 7 or 8 hours, and sometimes you walk away because you're impatient and you can't wait for those stitches that you might need. You're still in need of service, but you can't wait anymore, so you move on. And I think that situation could potentially happen in North Bay very quickly. The numbers are rising exponentially, and the same is true in most of the communities that I've visited. I've been to 9 different cities so far, and given the temperatures this year and the extreme nature of living on the streets and desperation of people, it's natural. Unfortunately, it's natural to see people sleeping in doorways and taking refuge in ATMs, because I myself, while I was homeless for 2.5 years, yes, I did occasionally sleep in a bank ATM vestibule when the temperatures reached closer to -30, because it was just too cold. I didn't have the services. I didn't have a tent. I didn't have a sleeping bag. The things that I have now, not even close. And most people don't have the basics required to survive properly on the streets, and possibly they don't also have the social skills necessary to get along in a shelter situation, so they choose not to go to the shelters. So I think a lot more coordinated effort on all parts of all social agencies needs to maybe rise up to address the need, and possibly have more outreach workers on the street firsthand, like directly interacting with people on the street, and doing more testing and more surveys, and actually meet the people on the street, and possibly even at night, like I do myself. I consider myself a midnight outreach worker in Cambridge, and I wander the streets and I meet people and I find out what they need, and then I acquire those things that they need and I make sure that they get them. So I think maybe that kind of service needs to be thought out, and possibly have a discussion group of sorts with different citizens throughout the community and throughout the district. Some of the outlying districts are probably overlooked. I got a call from Kenora, and to me that's probably one of the overlooked areas. So a long answer to a short question, but
Councillor Robertson?
Thank you, Mr. Tavares, for your presentation and for the work you're doing. I know a lot of people who are privileged enough to not be personally and directly affected by poverty or homelessness and mental illness, addiction, all those kinds of things. They might consider it a problem that doesn't affect them. I happen to think it's something that affects us all as a community. I'm wondering what your opinion is on that, if you consider poverty in general as a public health issue, and if you think it would be helpful for us to look at it that way.
I think definitely it's to me, it's a public health issue, and yes, unless you've had direct experience or know someone, a friend of yours maybe, someone you went to high school and you just happen to come across them on the streets and you talk to them, it's very difficult to have empathy or understanding of the situation, because you yourself have never experienced that. It's same with death and anything like that. If you go through your entire life and you become an older person, and you're fortunate enough to have your parents and your grandparents into later years, and the first time you experience death in your family is when you're in your 50s, then it's very hard for you to understand how someone at the age of 12 they don't have any grandparents anymore, that kind of thing. So yes, it's to me, it's a public health issue. It affects all first responders at every level, and it's a drain on resources. So to think that it's not a public health issue, I think it's a misconception. I think it's a lack of understanding, and that's part of what I'm doing, is going around and telling my story and relating it to real life, that anybody at any time, regardless of your current situation, any series of circumstances could happen in anyone's life to create that situation. So yes, to your question.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Taveras, welcome to our city, and thank you so much for bringing awareness to homelessness.
Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Tignanelli, seconded by Councillor Bain, that minutes for the public meeting held on Tuesday, February 26, 2019 be adopted as presented.
Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Moved by Councillor Tanya Vraybosch, seconded by Councillor Bill Vraybosch, the General Government Committee Report Number 2019-05 relating to 2019 operating budget be adopted as presented.
Deputy Mayor Raybosch?
Thank you very much. So this is the budget spiel, so it's going to be a little bit long. So we held 2 public open houses. We had 7 public budget meetings, and countless hours were spent by council and staff to put this thoughtfully proposed budget in front of you today. I've been very honest when we started this process that I didn't see us getting below 6%. We were able to get to 5.86% thanks to a last-minute announcement that our OMPF grant was going to increase by $148,000. A special thank you to our local representative, Minister Fedeli. He has always been a strong advocate for OMP funding. While no one is happy about a 5.86% increase, it is the reality of what is before us today. In the last 8 years, citizens have seen an average of below 2% in budget increases by using reserves and cutting pay-as-you-go capital. This was the first time that the city wasn't showing a balanced capital budget in a council term. Putting off the inevitable has finally come to the forefront. I've made commitments to my colleagues around the table that over the next 3.5 years, we will bring forward specialized reviews similar to our fleet management model, development, long-term staffing and succession planning, offer to work with the Police Services Board to develop a long-term financial plan, and identify guidelines and develop processes for Invest North Bay funds. When we last met, 10 out of 11 councillors were supportive of what was being proposed. Not because they liked the increase, not because they were getting everything that they wanted, but because they knew that what we were seeing in the budget, what we were going to see in the budget without any service level reduction had overall value. The average homeowner whose house is valued at $222,000 will see an estimated annual change to their 2019 tax bill of $128.29. This calculation is subject to change based on final approval of Council's tax policy and if there are any changes at the provincial level in relation to ratios. What this means is that for an estimated $10.69 a month, citizens will see that we've not only committed to Castle Home, but now we've figured out how to pay for it. So we've built capacity in the budget to be able to pay for our #1 priority being Castle Home, as well as the new community center. In this budget, you will see the splash pad built in partnership with Rotary. The city's contribution is the washrooms and the ongoing operating costs. So fund will, we were talking, saying to make it light, water fund will, should begin in the summer of 2019. In this budget, you will see that no transit reductions were made as we will be piloting a transit on demand type system this year. In this budget, you will see investment into economic development by way of an economic development officer to focus on business retention and expansion, doing a one-to-one liaison, and money set aside for Invest North Bay and their efforts to attract new businesses. $250,000, just to reiterate, is what was in the budget. The rest of it was through reserves that were combined and put into an economic development reserve. So it's not an Invest North Bay reserve fund at this point. At this point, it's just an economic development reserve, and policies and processes will be coming forward to Council for approval. In this budget, we have invested $50,000 in creative industries to continue to support and coordinate arts and culture. In this budget, you will see continued support for Heritage North Bay and the Heritage Gardeners. In this budget, you will see that we have supported the Drug Strategy Committee with a mandate to create a public education campaign and to coordinate the pickup of needles in targeted areas. In this budget, we have contributed $50,000 to the continuation of doctor recruitment. In this budget, you will see us invest in capital projects such as the reconstruction of Castle Street, the airport crosswinds/runway. A total of $34.7 million, which includes water and wastewater, will be invested in capital this year. In this budget, we have continued to invest just over $4 million in repairing and maintaining roads. So this includes rural roads. In this budget, you will see that we invest, and this is where I talked about Invest North Bay. So we're investing in growth when it comes to Invest North Bay. And I want to give another shout out to the fact that working with our economic development team led by Aaron Richmond and with Invest North Bay, we had an announcement recently of 120 jobs, partnership with Canadore College, and a 4,500 square foot facility coming to North Bay. And I don't know if anybody in this room ever thought we'd see a manufacturing company come to North Bay. But this is the good that we're doing in partnership for growing our city. In this budget, residents will soon have the opportunity to purchase tags to put out additional bags of garbage. Not in this budget is sports tourism, but it is one thing that this council has been very supportive of, whether it's the Ford Women's Curling, whether it's the Ranget provincial tournament that just came here bringing 3,000 people to the community. But we are supporting them through the MAT tax that we've supported as a council. So we'll be seeing more dollars invested into sports tourism going forward. This is a part where some people get annoyed that we say thank you. Budget time is every day for some of our staff. For the rest of us, we have been working on this budget for 4 months. It is a very long process that none of us take lightly. So here I go with my thank yous. So thank you to council for the number of meetings you attended, your input and your support, and thank you to your families for lending you to all the meetings that I scheduled. Thank you to the chairs for their additional work and meetings they attended or led. Thank you to the mayor for his support. Thank you to all our staff for participating during the budget process and sharing your ideas. Some of them are a work in progress and we're not done yet. Thank you to the public for participating in our open houses or emailing us your ideas. Thank you to the managing directors and senior staff for putting the budget together and working very hard to get us the information that we needed. Thank you to David Euler for his leadership as the CAO. And most of all, I want to thank Margaret Karpenko, our CFO, and Shannon Associate, the Director of Finance. No one would believe the number of hours that these two ladies have put in to get the budget done along with doing the rest of their job. There were nights when Margaret would message me at 3 in the morning. She literally ate, slept, dreamt, and lived this budget. I'm confident that the budget being proposed tonight is an honest, responsible, progressive, and budget, but it will also include a balanced capital budget. And that's where I said we were not balancing our capital budget in the next 4 years. So that's why I'm saying this is an honest and responsible budget. Thank you very much, and I would ask for a recorded vote, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Main?
Thank you, Worship. And I will be supporting the budget this year. I think it's been a challenge for all of us. It's the most significant increase I've seen in my 13 years on council. Just to share two small stories behind the scenes, one of which Deputy Mayor Raybosch already referred to. In transit, we proposed almost $200,000 in savings, but these were service cuts. Off-peak hours, holidays, there is no fat in these budgets. So in the operating side, we proposed $200,000 in actual service cuts, but the majority of council felt that this is still an important service to provide to people in the community. Those cuts were not brought forward. Under our transit system, as we look to modernize the fleet, one of the benefits that staff were able to identify after a lot of thoughtful consideration is with newer vehicles, we should be incurring less repair costs, so a further $200,000 would cut from the operating repair bill. There's always risk to a decision like that if those repair costs aren't actually accrued during the year, we may find ourselves short. But to the best of everyone's thoughtful ability, that was one small saving we found in the infrastructure and operations budget this year. So reflecting or echoing Deputy Mayor Raybosch's comments, I would like to thank everyone involved with the budget on the Infrastructure and Operations Committee, the committee members, Councillor Anthony, Councillor Tignanelli for all the hours we put in attending meetings, putting some thought and consideration into the process, particularly to Director John Severino, Railwave, John, thank you very much. Public Works Manager Nick Schiavone and all the staff who helped with suggestions and recommendations on how we can work more efficiently and effectively and find nickels and dimes in a budget that we pick over every year to try and find savings. And it is a significant increase this year, but I will be supporting the budget.
Okay, Councillor Anthony?
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I want to thank the public for their input. I definitely want to thank the Deputy Mayor for tackling a difficult budget. It was one of the most unique I've seen in my years on council, so that was a really big job. So to see you jump into that was impressive. I want to thank every one of my fellow councilors for all diving in to attend many meetings. Obviously, for some of us, it was a learning curve and jumping right into things, and looking at different ideas to find efficiencies. And of course, I do want to recognize our staff for all of their work as well, but especially in engineering and works, where I'm vice chair. I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with John Severino and really enjoyed it. Had a chance to work with David Euler before he started acting as our CAO. Really enjoyed that, and it was great to work with you gentlemen and all of your staff. There are a lot of things that I like and support in this budget. I do support anything we can do to move forward on our new community center / arena. I definitely support reconstruction on Castle Street. I support the work for our seniors at Castle Home. I support the work of Invest North Bay and the funding that will help them leverage more announcements like the recent one for the $45 million pharmaceutical project and up to 120 new jobs. Now keep in mind, Your Worship, I was somebody who would question giving funds to Invest North Bay when I didn't have details. You recall they had asked for $1 million. We are now seeing details. We are now seeing that they have a list of, there's 8 more leads that they're following up on. They've told us that in a letter. We are seeing the results coming in, so I have reason now and fully support the work they're doing when we can see this kind of growth. Those are things that I support. So while I can back the community center and Castle Home and Castle Street and Invest North Bay, I won't be able to support the overall budget increase. There are some things I would still do differently. I know we have a tax rate stabilization fund, for example. I would use half of that to do what I see as stabilizing this and bringing things down. However, I do not believe I would have support on that, and that's okay. That's democracy, and I believe in democracy. I respect the fact that my fellow councilors are voting in what they believe is best, and I know we all put a lot of time in at those meetings, so I don't have to agree with you to respect your opinion and your view and all the work you put into it. Just as you're voting for what you believe is best, I'll be voting with my heart as well. That being said, we have many other challenges to address as a council and several big projects to move forward as a council with the best interest of the city at heart. So once this vote is done, Your Worship, I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves, getting back to work with each of you around this table, on these challenges and on these projects. Those would be my comments, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Mendocino.
Thanks, Your Worship. I will be supporting this budget. I support this budget because it does address paying for a rebuild of Castle Home and starts to address a new twin pad and dealing with the ever-increasing infrastructure demands that we face year over year over year. I support this budget because it provides resources to support growing our city. We know that if we don't start growing our city right now, we will continue to decline. And for me, that's not an option. I support this budget because it delivers the services that the public tells us they want and expect. Retirements are an opportunity for an organization. We have approximately 100 employees eligible for retirement in the next 4 to 5 years. Council has an expectation of the CAO that he will work closely with his managers and directors to streamline operations where possible. The budget chief talked about specialized reviews of various departments. I'm happy to hear that that message has been heard, that is also an expectation moving forward. The overall, we talked about the overall budget increase of 5.86%, but I do want to reiterate again that that increase is broken up into 3 separate areas. Just the city operations proper to run our day-to-day business is going up 1.94%. That pays for wages increases, that pays for insurance, utilities. The capital of is going up 2.31%. We could double that amount and still be not up to par where we have to be in terms of investing in our capital. But I'm happy, Councillor Vraybosch, that we've plugged that hole in the capital and that we are addressing not just this year's capital needs, but capital needs of the future. And as we heard, our service partners, our ABCs, 1.61%. I think overall they've done a good job of keeping their increases to a minimum. I've heard it said twice already, and I share the sentiments. I've been part of 12 city budgets. This is my 12th, and by far this has been the most challenging, not just for me, but I can see as a council as well. Lots of thanks have gone around, and just overall, I want to first thank the budget chief. Job well done. And to thank staff, all the department heads, David Euler, CAO, and all his crew. Thanks for a job well done. To CFO Margaret Karpenko and all her team. Thanks for a job well done. I know the amount of time and effort that was put in by everyone on staff. And finally, to council as a whole, I just think, again, it's been a challenging process. Lots and lots of hours have been spent coming to where we are today, and for the whole of council, again, job well done. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Brousseau.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's important to continue nurturing and extending the life of our infrastructure, and in this budget, I see funding for improving and taking care of our assets. I see a budget that's financially preparing the city for a new build to replace a community center. The last community center North Bay built was 51 years ago. The new center is needed and will assist North Bay in becoming one of the healthiest cities in Canada. I see monies allocated to the resurfacing of the crosswind runway of the Jack Garland Airport. The airport offers a vital service and is also a selling feature to attract professionals and industries to our city. Upkeep is a must. I see monies being used to lay the groundwork for potential future investments in our downtown and waterfront. The budget is allowing us to keep the level of service the same as last year, but create a much-needed position in the Economic Development Department. With the help of the Rotary Club, the city will see a splash pad this year. Funds are also available for Creative Industries, Heritage North Bay, and the Dion Home. These associations enhance the social fabric and vibrancy of our city. This year, with a 5.86% increase to the cost of running the city, assuming that tax policy stays the same and everything stays the same as last year, my household will see an increase of $148. This was my first budget process. I've learned and I've listened, and I look forward to next year's. I'd like to thank the staff for their hard work and dedication and their patience. It is appreciated. Your Worship, I'll be supporting this budget.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor King?
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, I had a number of thoughts as we work towards the 2019 budget, and I did want to commend the Deputy Mayor for her effort. Certainly, it's not something I would have liked to have taken on, without question. And I guess as we watch this this budget roll out, some of my thoughts actually don't move towards fellow councillors or staff. I think my thoughts move towards public confidence and trust in government to continue the process. And as we watch many things unfold on the world stage, it appears that there's a major erosion going on. I think with transformation, it certainly requires increased accountability. And doing more with less has become the norm inside our economy. Certainly as a private business owner, that's the way we operate. I think we have to recognize that we're now in an austerity environment. It's challenging. It requires a critical look at how and where we've been. And there certainly are a number of services that we need to deliver, and I recognize that. But in looking at the service delivery, obviously we have to recognize what's transpiring in our country. And I think Canada closed out 2018 with one of the weakest quarters economically in performance in 2.5 years. Stats Canada indicates that 2018 slowdown mostly was due to a 2.7% contraction in investment, spending, exports declined, and also household spending slowed for the second straight quarter. And we are now on the edge of a recession. 1% decline in the real gross national income is very steep, and this is only in comparison with the first quarter of 2015. The contradiction or contraction of 2.3% were seen in household consumptions, business investment, and housing investment. Are we as a council blind to those facts? Is staff blind to those facts? Do we know what's happening nationally with the economy? And is our community in place to deal with those contractions? So when I look at that process, and I've been here for a while and I've watched the process internally in the city, and I took some time to talk to a number of people in and around the city. I had the fortune of talking to a very large business owner from Toronto this morning, and spent about 2 hours with him talking about the economic condition in the GTA and the contraction now that's going on. It's not unusual now to watch payables extend out 120 days. And this is kind of standard process in the business, general business. And it's being seen by many, many businesses, not only in the GTA, but throughout the country. So I guess when I look at those processes, certainly I recognize the need to move the city forward. But is this really the time to hit business owners, single mothers, divorced people? I can't for the life of me justify that type of increase. I did take some time to talk with the president of the group that is now working in the city with respect to rental properties. And we did talk about the excess service costs and abnormal property tax increases. Direct impact on rental property owners is substantial. It's so substantial that rent increases from a property owner standpoint can only be increased 1.8% this year. And that increase can only be recognized every 12 months of the year. How do we justify a 6% property tax increase when property owners providing rental can't increase their costs? Where are they? Couple that with excessive water rate increases, and the real cost to the bottom line of those invested in real estate becomes critical. I don't think it takes a genius to understand that there's no ability to get a rate of return. And as we move in that direction, the city moves toward rental housing shortages. There's no question that will take place. It's only around the corner. So when we look at these increases, certainly many of us have to question whether or not that type of increases is really doable. I think as chair of DSAB, I've watched the homeless and the record level that we actually face in this particular community. I don't know whether you recognize this, but the shelters and the warming center were over capacity this winter. DSAB is serving some 1,200 families with homeless prevention opportunities. taxes will have a tremendous impact on these particular people. So I guess, in summing up, I was quite interested in listening to some back and forth today with respect to the tax increase and the fact that we seem to, there's a general feeling here from some people in the city that this increase actually is a direct result of the use of reserves to prop up the property tax reductions in past years. And I think it's absolutely wrong to suggest that's taken place. We know there was 1.2 million in 2016 that was actually used to provide tax breaks, but that has slowly been paid back since that period. So there's no reason to suggest that the past actions of the previous council has impacted this type of increase. It's just not so. Having said that, I don't believe I have much more to offer, although I won't be supporting the budget. And again, I did want to thank the Deputy Mayor for her efforts, and certainly, hopefully, we can move forward. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Raybosch.
Well, thank you very much, and I guess I'm kind of an outside observer, but I've been here long enough to understand that I'm very proud of this council, proud of the steps you're taking. One of the biggest problems I get into here is the fact that the deterioration of North Bay image was really one of the biggest problems we had. My observations are that the city of North Bay has decimated the reserves to a point whereby they were at very dangerous levels. Infrastructure and necessary upkeep have been allowed to go downhill, which is reflecting a general image of the city, and that's not good. You can't use money that's made for rainy days purposes to start propping up infrastructure in everyday day-to-day operations. So my idea is that reserves are very important and they should be used properly. I call reserves rainy day dollars to be used for emergencies and special expenses that seem to pop up. One that popped up 2 weeks ago was the West Ferris Arena. $70,000 had to come from somewhere. You have to bring this stuff in. Now, there are some people who suggest that lay off staff, cut upkeep, cut your capital projects. This will solve everything. I think this has been the problem here. Got a bad image. It's like somebody who dug a hole and pulls in the earth around themselves. We have to put the image out there that North Bay is progressive, and I think this budget's going to do it. We've delayed capital projects in a lot of cases, and Madame Brousseau, you're the chair of one of the ones, like the West Ferris Arena. We've delayed it, and I think right now when you start adding up the cost of living every year, you're probably going to pay 25% more to build this arena than you would have when you should have built it. So I think there's a lot of things when this procrastination effect hits you. It's easy to go and look after, you know, use whatever dollars you can to bring the dollars down. We need a good image of under 2%, under 1%. A good friend of mine, Hazel McCallion, always told me that anything under 1% was a waste of time. It's just simply a deferment of payments you're going to have to make later. And I'm very proud of the fact that we're going to take the bull by the horns here. We're going to show that North Bay is ready to progress. For $10.69 a month, some of the progressive things that are going to happen here, I don't think have been seen in the city of North Bay for years. People will not know this city at the end of 4 years. We're going to make this place the place where people want to come and live. So I think we want to thank Vic Fideli, who I was worried about 6.5 a little bit, but with Vic's 148,000 in the OMPF, we were able to bring it down to the 5.86. It shows that this budget is going to show us we're open for business. So the overall image that I said we had to fix in North Bay when I got into this business is being fixed by this council. I think this is a very progressive budget, and I think the water, little ways in the water are going to get out to somebody. They're ready to move. And this train in North Bay is ready to go, and if you don't get on it, you're going to miss it, because we're going ahead. So I feel very good about this budget. I'm proud of it. Margaret Karpenko, I don't know how you do this, but emails at 3 in the morning suggest to me you're overworking. But that's what municipal staff do. So the municipal staff, when I look at some of the hours they put in, anybody who tells me that a municipal staff member only puts in 35 to 40 hours a week, sometimes if there was that many in a day, they'd find how to work that into a day. So your staff here at the City of North Bay, as far as I can see, very efficient, very easy, very willing to help. When you start putting pay-as-you-go money, using that, pardon me, for your money from your reserves and into pay-as-you-go for ongoing maintenance, sidewalks, repairs, patching, arena problems, streetlights, that's not right. You don't use that money for that. So I'm glad that we're going to the part where we're going back to the taxpayer and taking half of their. I don't like the idea that we're getting half of the infrastructure increase from reserves, because I'm not a heavy user of reserves. I'm a rainy day person. But I understand that right now the taxpayers in North Bay are a little bit strapped. But I think when they see all the stuff that's going to happen this year for $10.69, we're going to get nothing but plaudits, and they're not going to be just plaudits within the City of North Bay. This is going to get out to the other place that North Bay is ready to go. Thank you.
Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Worship. First, I want to thank everyone that provided comments, whether it was members of public or council or staff towards the budget. Also want to thank everyone that worked on the budget, and everyone else around the table has thanked them all. No councillor can be 100% comfortable with the whole budget. There's going to be parts of it that they don't like. I had to chuckle earlier. Bucket bag is something, even though there's going to be, you can buy extra tags, I believe that that's a step backwards. But again, I'm just one person and would have loved to see support around the table from all of my council colleagues for $1 a bag for every bag. But again, you don't get everything you want. We hear, as a couple of councillors have mentioned, is that over the years we've heard that, we just have too much staff at City Hall. But over the last decade, every time someone either leaves the corporation or they retire, there's been a mini reorganization. There's over 30 people that have left the corporation or positions that we no longer have than we did over a decade ago. The Deputy Mayor talked about the reviews that are planned for the city. And I think that that's supportive, is that no organization should be afraid to look at itself and how it does, and to get opinions from other organizations that they work with. So that if we can find ways of doing, interacting with our agencies, boards, and commissions better, if we can assist them, if they can assist us in providing services to the public in a better way, we should encourage that and we should embrace that. I own 3 properties in town. I'm not happy that the number's what it is. But the fact is that I've sat through most of the budget meetings that you've all sat through. And there's not, unless we go and have service level reductions, meaning that buses might not run as frequently. The the arenas aren't going to be available for ball hockey in the summer. Ice wouldn't be available in the summer. If we reduce services, then it's going to directly impact the community. And to date, I haven't seen that there's an appetite from around council to do that. But it's someday soon, if we continue to have budget increases like this, that may be something that we have to start polling the community about to find out if there's an appetite in the public. But I haven't had anybody that come to me that rides the buses every day asking that, oh gee, I could pay more, or I don't need the bus to be available. People that use our ball fields, use our hockey arenas, they don't want to pay more. They want us to build a new community center with 2 pads so that they're not going to Trout Creek for 6:30 in the morning for hockey practices. We provide the services that nobody else wants to provide. And unfortunately, there's a cost to all of those services. And so I believe that this is the best that we could do without impacting services to our community. So I will be voting in favor of the budget, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, any further? Councillor Robertson?
Okay. Like Councillor Bain said, I don't think anybody is very happy with a 5.86% levy increase. That being said, having participated in this process for the first time, I'm pretty sure I was present at all of the budget meetings. I wasn't able to bring forward suggestions that would significantly lower this levy with spending cuts or eliminating new spending. I personally wasn't able to bring forward valuable contributions that would have lowered this in any significant way. And to be frank, I didn't hear any significant contributions around the table from other councillors that would have significantly lowered this levy either. We had some suggestions to use reserve money to lower the levy, and I would have been happy to entertain that. And moving forward in 2020, having been through this process one time, I'm certainly happy to entertain that notion in the 2020 budget process. But some of the new spending that's involved in this budget, some of it is mandated, and we don't have a choice. For example, $150,000 for the Integrity Commissioner, that's mandated by the province. We don't have a choice. The redevelopment of Castle Home is mandated by the province. We don't have a choice, and it's about time that we start putting money towards that. We have a new economic development officer, which is something that I support because I know the work that goes on in that office. I've seen it firsthand, and I really believe that adds a lot of value to economic development in our city. And the pay-as-you-go dollars is a big driver of this levy increase. $500,000 is going to affect the levy. We've got an extra $1 million, but $500,000 of that is stuff that is dollars that are going to affect the levy. I learned through this process that we had a 10-year capital budget plan that was initiated in 2012. And with the exception of the first year of that plan, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, we failed to meet our requirements as per that 10-year capital plan. So a big driver of this levy increase is the chickens coming home to roost as far as capital spending. We've got $50,000 going to creative industries in this budget, which is something that I support because I really believe that supporting the arts and culture in our city is going to add value, is going to be good for the overall health and well-being of our city, and I approve those dollars. During the campaign, I was very supportive of the hiring of a communications officer because we were told constantly that communication with the public is an area that needs to improve. And so we've got that as part of the budget. We've got doctor recruitment as part of the budget. So there are parts of this budget that I don't support, and there are things that I think we could have deferred to other years. But in large measure, I support the vision of this budget. I want to give a shout out to the budget chief for the hard work that went into this and for the leadership that she showed in the budget meetings. So a lot of respect for the budget chief in that regard. And I'm going to be supporting this budget.
Great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of the things that I heard on, and then I'll do the final wrap up. So there was talk about using the tax rate stabilization fund, and I just want to make sure that it is always an option. But what people don't realize is that we're already in a tax rate stabilization fund. We're weaning ourselves off of using it. We use a tax rate stabilization fund in the good years to get us below those 2%. There was one year that we were under 1%, and we used a tax rate stabilization fund. So right now, we still have to pay $700,000 to wean ourselves off of that tax rate stabilization fund. This year, we're paying, I think it's approximately $280,000 that we're paying within this budget to wean ourselves off. So to use it, for me, it wasn't, if you don't think I tried to look for every tool in the toolbox to use to get this budget down, I asked and I asked and I asked, and the staff were looking for every possible solution or tool to get it down. That's why I said, realistically, I didn't see us getting below 6%, and without the oomph, we weren't getting below 6%. We were going to be at 6.04%. So without seeing major service level cuts, right? This is where we're at. The last time we saw a community center built, 1967, and that's when the city built one. And just so anybody knows, if you're my age, you probably thought that we built Pete Pelangio. We bought Pete Pelangio from somebody. So, and if you ask some of the other ones around the table, they already knew that. So I just want to make sure that I shared that. So West Ferris in 1967 was the last time that we built a community center from scratch. Last time we built a nursing home, 1923 was when Castle Home was built. Sure, there's been modernization and some additions, but the last time we fully built a nursing home, 1923. We're being hit hard with this at the same exact time, and we need to make sure that we have the money in pay-as-you-go to be able to pay for that. When we talk about, there was comments about that it wasn't, the past council using reserves, but we did use reserves. And I was on that council, and I didn't agree with a lot of this stuff, but that's how it was. And we use reserves for things, so Heritage North Bay, capital improvements. It's our building, but we always use reserves. We didn't put it in as a capital line, and we use reserves. When you look at, I'm trying to think of some of the other things that we've done where we creative industries. This year we're putting it as a line item. Previously we used reserves. We've done lots of things where we did it after the fact using reserves, where we should have just put it in the budget and did it realistically and responsibly, but we didn't. We wanted to try it out, or we didn't want to see that budget number increase. We always wanted it to be below 2%. When it comes to the cutting of capital, the pay-as-you-go, one year we cut, I'm trying to think if it was 2012 or 2013, we cut $1 million. The next year we cut $250,000. Then we cut $1.2 million. And then we had $600,000 given for a project, but instead of using for just a special project, we used it to offset our operating budget for capital, for pay-as-you-go. So these are the decisions that we've made in previous councils to try to keep the budget low, and it was a decision at the time, but it's now catching up to us. We need the we need the cash in our hands, and we need to build capacity within this budget to get us to be able to pay for Castle Home and the new community center in the next couple of years. But if we don't do that, you're going to see double-digit numbers. I thought I was having a hard time with 8%, but we're going to see double digits. If we didn't do it this year, we were going to be in double digits. And the next few years are not going to be easy for us either. And I've been very honest with that, is that we have challenges coming forward, but we have a lot of great things happening as well. For people to see a tax reduction, we need to grow. And that's exactly what this council is doing. And I know some people don't like tying the budget to growth, but that's what we need to do. So, and what we're working towards, so we see an announcement, 200 students a year for the next 20 years through a Canada partnership, a new Geno Lab, pharmaceutical company. The film industry is booming, and we keep supporting it, and it's great. There's another private announcement that I saw on Facebook for a property of a new company. They haven't announced it yet, but there's another company coming in. I don't know who it is, but that's great. Jiffy Lube, as much as sometimes people, it's not the big wow, but the fact that they want to reinvest in our community is a great thing. That's assessment dollars for us. When I talk about tools in the toolbox, when I look for the growth, because usually we use growth to help spread out who has to pay, and it helps with the pain. But I had no growth to use for this year, because we had growth, but it was growth that whether it was hands or the health unit, but there was no assessment for me to use that for, or we had assessment appeals. So any opportunity that people have had in the past to use, I had nothing in the toolbox to bring this down. So this council, what we've proposed and what you guys have gone through, you've seen the challenges this council has looked. We were literally, the hand was in the couch looking for coins. But what we're doing though is some of those commitments is trying to say, when we look at doing those, and I know people think about doing reviews and you think about the Operational Review Committee and how long that process took. This is not the same thing. This is very different. This is very specific and targeted, and it's going to be in conjunction with the Operational Review Committee to identify which departments to look at. But it's looking at how do we do things differently, thinking outside the box. And like I said, Transit on Demand is the first thing that it's not a typical thing. It's not how we've done business for the last 20 or 30 years. It's doing things differently that we most likely will see efficiencies. We're going to provide a better service for but that's what we need to do. We need to start thinking differently. And I think that this council is very, I was going to say my father, Councillor Vreibach, said progressive. And this is a progressive council, and I think that we will see great things coming. This budget put forward is going to invest in arts, health, culture, transit, infrastructure, beautification, and economic development. That's what this budget has been put forward to. And so I appreciate the comments around the table, and it's been a long process, and like I said, it's a challenge, and I think in a couple months we're starting the next budget. So I'm glad Joanne mentioned that she wants to get into the next budget already, along with Scott. So let's get ready. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McIsaac, a recorded vote has been requested.
So recorded vote upon the request of Councillor Tanya Vreibach. Counselor Tanya Vrabosh?
Yes.
Counselor Bill Vrabosh? Yes. Counselor Robertson?
Yes.
Counselor Tignanelli?
Yes.
Counselor Anthony?
No.
Counselor Bain?
Yes.
Counselor Mendocino?
Yes.
Counselor Main?
Yes.
Counselor Brousseau?
Yes.
Counselor King?
No.
Mayor McDonald?
Yes.
The motion is carried.
Moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Bain, that General Government Committee Report Number 2019-06 relating to District of Nipissing Social Services Administration Board 2019 operating budget be adopted as presented.
We've recognized Deputy Mayor Raybosh's and Councillor Raybosh's conflict. Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Moved by Councillor Tanya Vrabosh, seconded by Councillor Bill Vrabosh, that General Government Committee Report Number 2019-07 relating to 2019 General Capital Budget and 2019 Water and Wastewater Capital Budget be adopted as presented.
Deputy Mayor Raybosh.
So I'm going to give another long spiel. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just going to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. Councillor Main?
Worship and Deputy Mayor Vrabosh, I just had the two capital items to comment on. They are significant and they're new items, and that's what's adding partly to the increase in the budget this year, which is Castle Home. We've known it's been coming for years. There has been no reserve set aside. We've done no pre-saving towards it. So thank you very much for everyone's support of Castle Home. We are using about $500,000 in reserves towards growing that portion of the capital this year for both Castle Home and the arena. And also the cross runway, the airport, Jack Garland Airport Committee last week, it was discussed, the significance of moving this project forward now. At $3.1 million, it's a significant investment, but that cross runway, which is important to the airport services we provide as part of the economic development of the city, that runway is at the point where it's deteriorating to the point that if we don't resurface, repair it now, we're going to end up having to replace the entire runway, which is significantly more expensive than the repairs we're doing now. So I strongly support that investment in the community as well. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Recorded vote has been requested. Ms. McIsaac?
So recorded vote upon the request of Counselor Tanya Vrabosh. Counselor Tanya Vrabosh?
Yes.
Counselor Bill Vrabosh? Counselor Tignanelli?
Yes.
Counselor Main?
Yes.
Counselor Mendocino?
Yes.
Counselor Brousseau?
Yes.
Counselor King?
Yes.
Counselor Robertson?
Yes.
Counselor Anthony?
Yes.
Counselor Bain?
Yes.
Mayor McDonald?
Yes.
The motion is unanimously passed.
Item 1, moved by Councillor Tanya Vrabosh, seconded by Councillor Bill Vrabosh, that one council delegate authority to the Chief Financial Officer, Treasurer to delegate to A, initiate and file notices of assessment appeal for any property within the boundaries of the City of North Bay, the municipality, with the Assessment Review Board, the ARB. B, withdraw any appeal filed by the municipality should it be determined that it is not in the municipality's best interest to proceed. C, negotiate and make a settlement deal on the city's behalf, any mediation or settlement conferences on property tax or assessment matter as a party to all appeals, whether filed by the municipality or another person, entity, or agent. 2, the delegation of authority bylaw number 2007-228 be updated to reflect the delegated authority to the Chief Financial Officer, Treasurer. And 3, Council Resolution number 1998-03 be rescinded.
Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Item 2, moved by Councillor Tanya Vrabosh, seconded by Councillor Bill Vrabosh, that Schedule A and Schedule D to bylaw number 2012-97, being a bylaw to regulate smoking in public places and workplaces, be amended to include those workplaces and apartment buildings identified in Report to Council Corp. 2019-27, dated February 28, 2019, from Ron Melnick.
Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Item 3, moved by Councillor Tanya Vrabosh, seconded by Councillor Bill Vrabosh, that Council 1 approves the signing of the agreement between Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services, and the Corporation of City of North Bay for the Court Security Prisoner Transportation, CSPT program, and 2, authorize the Mayor and City Clerk to execute the agreement between Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services and the Corporation of the City of North Bay for the Court Security Prisoner Transportation Program.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I think this is actually timely to recognize that the province has uploaded court security costs in the amount of some $629,000 for the year 2019. It's also timely to recognize that the province has uploaded a total of $2.7 million for the years 2012 through to the year 2018. And I guess the fact that we are passing that on to the Police Services Board, the question then becomes, how has that impacted the Police Services Board? And was it recognized in their capital budget at this particular time? So I'll leave it with our two members, Your Worship and Councillor Brousseau, to get some kind of feedback from the Police Services Board as to whether or not they recognize that money. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Raybosch.
Thank you very much. Just to help with the clarification of that, it is in their budget. It's in their operating budget, and they saw an additional $60,000 that helped reduce our budget. That helped us get to that 5.86, the OMPF plus the $60,000 from this the court grant helped us get our taxes down. So it is within their budget at the Police Services Board.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Item 4, moved by Councillor Tanya Vraybosch, seconded by Councillor Bill Vraybosch, that 1, City Council acknowledges the 2019 general operating, water and wastewater operating, and capital budgets were prepared on a cash basis format and excluded the following expenses: amortization of tangible capital assets, employee future benefit costs, solid waste landfill closure and post-closure expenses. 2, Council authorizes the continued preparation of the city's annual general water and wastewater operating and capital budgets using the cash basis format.
Any discussion? Deputy Mayor Raybosch.
Just to make sure that everyone's aware that this is just a requirement of the Municipal Act. You know, there's record differences from cash basis to accrual basis, so it's just a housekeeping.
Okay. All in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Item 5, moved by Councillor Brousseau, seconded by Councillor Robertson, that 1, Council approve the Corporation of the City of North Bay entering into a memorandum of agreement with the North Bay Jack Garland Airport Corporation for the operations of the North Bay Jack Garland Airport on the terms and conditions as set out in the memorandum of agreement between the Corporation of the City of North Bay and the North Bay Jack Garland Airport Corporation, attached to report to Council EESW 2019-04 from John Severino dated March 6, 2019. 2, Council authorized the Mayor and City Clerk to execute the memorandum of agreement. And 3, the bylaw authorizing the Corporation of the City of North Bay to enter into the memorandum of agreement be given 3 readings on March 18, 2019.
Councillor Main.
Thank you, Worship. And again, this was discussed at last week's meeting of the Jack Garland North Bay Airport Committee. The city first entered an agreement with the board June 2003. That agreement expired December 31st, 2018. I think overall the city realizes the importance of managing the airport, keeping it locally. The board does an excellent job of always looking for new sources of revenue, but at the end of the day, they're very focused on running the airport as effectively and efficiently as they can, hence the need for the upgrade to the cross runway. It makes a lot of sense to just renew the agreement. Appreciate everyone's support.
Further discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Moved by Councillor Tanya Vraybosch, seconded by Councillor Bill Vraybosch, that the following bylaws be read a first and second time. Bylaw number 2019-19, to authorize the execution of an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Community, Safety and Correctional Services, relating to Court Security Prisoner Transportation Program. Bylaw number 2019-21, to authorize the execution of a memorandum of agreement between the North Bay Jack Garland Airport Corporation and the Corporation of the City of North Bay.
Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Moved by Councillor Tanya Vraybosch, seconded by Councillor Bill Vraybosch, that the following bylaw be read a third time and passed. bylaw number 2019-19, and bylaw number 2019-21.
Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.
Moved by Councillor Tanya Vraybosh, seconded by Councillor Bill Vraybosh. The council adjourn in camera pursuant to Section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended at 6:34 p.m. for the following reason. Item 6 being a proposed disposition of land by the municipality.
That concludes the regular portion of the special meeting of council for Monday, March 18th, 2019. All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried.